Hi, I'm Christopher Williams, your local American history reporter, and this is American History News. Today we're going to go back in time and take a look at life in America during, before, and after World War One. World War One, when the first war broke out on August of 1914, most Americans was reluctant to get involved with the European conflict. American president at the time was Woodrow Wilson, and he issued a declaration of American neutrality that set his sights on becoming the first peacemaker between warring nations. Although the United States, given its heritage, had an affinity for the British, it also had a consideration population of German background. American American neutrality began to erode with the sinking by a submarine of the British in 1915, ship called the Lusitania. This led to the death of a number of Americans. In 1917, Germany began the unrestricted submarine warfare in the Atlantic of the United States, and it broke off the diplomats' ties. Nevertheless, Wilson remained opposed to America's entry into the war. We wasn't going to war because that just basically would break us being neutral in everything. We were a powerhouse, but we wanted to remain neutral. Our country was not in any kind of jeopardy, any kind of shambles, so we wanted to leave it that way. Made no sense to fight in a war that basically didn't have that much to do with us. Nevertheless, nevertheless, Wilson remained opposed to American entry in the war. The publication of the Zimmerman Telegram turned in American publications' opinion against Germany. However, in this document, Germany offered to help Mexico recover the lands it had lost from the United States in 1840 in exchange for Mexican support in the war. Continued attacks on American ships led to an American declaration of war against Germany in April of 1917. And during this time, we wouldn't go to war, but Germany was insisting on trying to take us there, even by joining forces with Mexico, saying that they would help Mexico get back lands that we had and that we took from them back in the 1840s. So eventually that led us to have to defend ourselves. They were sinking our ships, still was holding back. But eventually enough is enough. And we had to show that we were a powerhouse. A number of congressmen and senators, particularly from the heavily German West, opposed this declaration. The country went on to war, fought it almost immediately. Although the Americans, especially those of Germany background, continued to oppose the war, civil liberties were suspended, protesters was jailed, a draft was instituted, industries was forcibly streamlined and put on war footing, and German Americans cultural in excuse me cultural institutions were suppressed. Hamburgers was renamed the Liberty Steak, and the sauerkraut Liberty cabbage, it was wicked. Even if you were renaming food, it had to be wicked. Most people don't want to go into a restaurant, excuse me, and order the Liberty cabbage or the Liberty steak. I want the porterhouse. I want a bowl of nice, good southern cabbage. Sauerkraut, I want it on my hot dog. Never knew where the name came from to now, but now I know. Fortunately, this food did not prevail after the war ended. Even the diseases, German measles, took the Liberty measles nickname, and for some time, these trends seemed a little silly today, but to represent a true instance of the way it was back then in hysterica, everything that went wrong with the country was German related. It's a matter of debate whether the large American presence in the war on the side of the British or the French actually turned the tides in the favor of the Allies. It certainly helped. America forced did not enter the war to any meaningful extent until the spring of 1918. In only a few months, more than 100,000 Americans lost their lives, which was a reason why we didn't want to go to war. Our lives are very precious. And if it took a few months for us to lose 100,000 lives, just imagine how many lives we would have lost if we would have went to war from day one. With twice the number wounded, these sacrifices assured that nearly every city and town in the United States that existed at the time had a memorial or statue to commemorate the local citizens who did not return. Every city or state in America lost somebody due to this war. And we had to commemorate them like we do with most Americans, or actually with every American that passed away from the military. You give them a soldier American burial. The honor of this war, though, much less than the suffer by Europeans, led to new strains of isolation in America. Life in the decades that followed during the war, industries employed women in what had previously been men jobs, giving women a taste of freedom and a full inclusion in society as never before. The women's suffrage movement had antagonized and initiated the Votes for Women for several generations. Women won the right with the passage in the 19th Amendment to this Constitution of 1920. I remember when I was young, I spoke with my grandfather, who was a member of World War One, and he told me all these stories about how it was to be a black man in the war. And even though he was a cook, it was scary for him because he was actually a black man in the war where he didn't have opportunity to be there because he wanted to be, but more because he had to be. He gave his time, blood, sweat, and tears to serve the best way that he could. And just like every American, when he got back, there was no reward. There was no, no restitution for them because everything that they had was basically gone in a sense. It was hard for them to adjust back into the way of living because the way of living wasn't the same. Things had changed the time that they were gone. They were over 4 years gone. And to come back to no jobs, house living situations are different. The women were doing more of the working, and to be war veteran heroes, it was scary. It almost was a, what do I do next? He used to always tell me that for him, he would never suggest to anyone go into the war, where it was a time of his life. He just didn't see that the respect for the military was the same as it was back then. So my statement as of today is, when you join the military, make sure you're fighting for a country that you love, and not that you feel you're forced to just fight. This is a beautiful country, a country that we all should love, because the freedom here is like no other. And with that being said, this has been American History News, and I'm your host, Christopher Williams. God bless you, and good night.